Hey there guys, welcome back to another new video. Today I'm going to be doing my classic Doctor Who DVD collection. I don't think I've done a Doctor Who DVD collection in quite some time. Well, this is a collection video of which I'll be giving my thoughts on, my brief thoughts on each of the individual stories. So as you can see, it's quite a bit bigger than last time, because I picked up like 3 or 4 over the past few months, now that I'm off college. So yeah, I think we should crack on with the video, and I'll start off at the beginning, no pun intended. So yeah, we have an Unearthly Child, the Daleks and the Edge of Destruction. I'll keep this one in its box because I think it just looks like a nice box, and it kind of looks good against all my other classic DVDs. So yeah, an Unearthly Child. It's an okay story, I think. Episode 1 is absolutely fantastic. I thought it was a brilliant start to the show. But as for the rest of the episodes, they're not that great. The Daleks, it's not really one of my favourite Dalek stories, but it's still quite a good story nonetheless, even though it is a bit long. The Edge of Destruction, probably my favourite in the box set, surprisingly. It's a nice short story. I think it's a bit underrated, but I really enjoyed it the first time I watched it. But I think the overall conclusion to how they solve the problem is a bit stupid. Now, one of my favourite stories, the Aztecs. It's a brilliant story, and probably best to get the special edition because there are so much better special features, and you also get Galaxy 4, which is quite a good story as well, along with this. So technically you're paying for 2 stories, but the Galaxy 4 is a reconstruction with 1 surviving episode. Dalek Invasion of Earth. This is overrated, I find. I don't think it's that good as people say it is. But I know a lot of people that do like it, but I'm not really one of those people. It could have done without being a 6-parter. 4 parts would have been absolutely fine, and if it was 4 parts, I would have probably enjoyed it a lot more, because I think episodes 3 and 4 are completely pointless. Next up, we have the Space Museum. An underrated story, but I really like it. I thought it was a bit better than The Chase, but I think the writer could have had a bit more time to write this, and if he did, I think it would have been a lot better than it is. Not that it's bad, I think it's a great story, but yeah, I think this is quite an enjoyable one. The Chase. This is probably the silliest Dalek story I've ever watched. Despite the fact I think it's great. The comedy elements are a bit over the top, but they didn't fail to make me laugh. I did have quite a few laugh out loud moments whilst watching this. But it's a good Dalek story, I think. So yeah, the Gunfighters. Nice story. It's really quick. 4 parts, a really quick 4-parter, and if you like the Wild West, then this is definitely the story for you, because it's quite an enjoyable story. The War Machine's an absolutely fantastic story, really, really, really good. Next up we have the Lost in Time box set. This is probably an essential part to your Doctor Who DVD collection, because it's full of surviving clips from various episodes, and surviving episodes as well as surviving clips, so it's really, really good stuff. Now moving on to the Patrick Troughton years, we have Tomb of the Cybermen. An absolute classic, this one. I love the music in this. This is one of my favourite classic Doctor Who scores. I just love it. It's stuck in my head all the time. I just think it's so memorable, and this is a lot of I think this is a fan favourite in many ways. The Ice Warriors, not as good as the other Ice Warrior stories. My favourite Ice Warrior story is The Seeds of Death. The Mind Robber, a bit of a weird story, this one, but I think it's fantastic still. The Invasion. I haven't watched this one in a while, so I can't really give my thoughts on it, but I think what I can remember is that was a brilliant story. The Seeds of Death, like I said, my favourite Ice Warriors story. Now moving into my favourite Doctor, John Pertwee, with his debut story, Spearhead from Space. An absolute classic. The Autons are probably at their best in this one. Then we have Doctor Who and the Silurians. At first I didn't really like it, but on second viewing I absolutely loved it. I thought this is a great story, but it does get a bit slow. But it's still fantastic. The Ambassadors of Death, probably the weakest out of season 7, but it's still a brilliant story nonetheless. And my favourite story out of this season, probably one of my favourite stories ever, which is Inferno. As you can see, it's signed by John Levine. Just an absolute classic, a real brilliant story, this one. If you haven't seen Inferno, then you're not really a fan, to be honest. I'm really joking, but Terror of the Autons, probably not as good as Spearhead from Space, but still a fantastic story, and it's the debut of the Master, Roger Delgado. The Daemons, a brilliant story, a lot of people's favourites, I think. It's one of those stories where I don't think many people have heard of it, but it's a fantastic story, and if you haven't watched it, then it's just a great story. Day of the Daleks, severely underrated. That's mainly due to the fact the Dalek voices are pretty bad, but there's a special edition on this DVD, and it's brilliant. The Curse of Paladin, my favourite Paladin story. It's a truly fantastic story. It's a lot better than the Monster of Paladin, to be honest. Next up we have the Sea Devils. Yeah, fantastic story, really well directed. I really love the Sea Devils in this, and it's one of the great John Pertwee stories. The Three Doctors, I think this is my least favourite multi-Doctor story, but it's still a great story and it's quite fun to watch. Carnival of Monsters, I've only watched this once, probably because I didn't really like it that much, but I may rewatch it next week or the next few days. Frontier in Space, brilliant story. This has an absolutely fantastic cliffhanger, but it's a shame Roger Delgado passed away not long after this story was filmed, I think. Next up we have Planet of the Daleks, one of my favourite Dalek stories, not my favourite, but one of my favourites, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is brilliant if you're bored and you want something to cheer you up. This is definitely a story that will definitely cheer you up. John Pertwee's final season now, and we have The Time Warrior, which is the debut for Sarah Jane Smith. Great story, probably the best Sontaran story. The Invasion of the Dinosaurs, good story. Death of the Daleks, a really underrated Dalek story, but I think it's fantastic. We have The Monster of Paladin. Not as good as Curse, but still okay. Now we have Tom Baker, beginning with The Ark in Space. I don't have Robot, unfortunately, but I'll get that at some point. Fantastic story, a lot of people's favourite story, I think. The Sontaran Experiment, nice, short, quick, 2-part story to watch. Genesis of the Daleks, a bit overrated. I wouldn't say it was the best Doctor Who story of all time, but no, it's still fantastic. Terror of the Zygons, now this is a bloody brilliant story. The Zygons, only classic story until they reappeared in Day of the Doctor, and now Series 9. Yeah, if you like the Zygons in the Day of the Doctor, you'll really like them in this. Pyramids of Mars, brilliant story. One of the best Doctor Who stories, I think. The Android Invasion, a good story. Not the best, but it's still a good story. Deadly Assassin, an absolute masterpiece, brilliant story. The Robots of Death, another brilliant story. Talons of Wayne Chiang, another fantastic story, I think. The Horror of Fang Rock, I think I always find this one slightly overlooked, but I really love this story. It's probably, I think it might be my favourite Tom Baker story. We have The Invasion of Time, which is probably the weakest Sontaran story in my view. Next up we have the Key to Time season, and for that we have the first part, which is the Reboss Operation. I haven't watched this one in a while. I can't remember much about it, to be honest. The Pirate Planet, probably my least favourite story of the Key to Time. Sons of Blood, easily the best story of that season, and it's an absolute classic. The Androids of Tara, yeah, it's a nice historical story, but actually, to be honest, I haven't watched this one in a while either, so I can't remember much about that one, but I think it was okay. Power of Kroll, an underrated story. This is probably one of my guilty pleasures. I love it so much. I don't know why, I just do. The Armageddon Factor, probably a bit of a disappointing conclusion to the Key to Time season. Now we have, I think this is season 17, with Destiny of the Daleks. Yes, probably my least favourite Dalek story. Sharda, I'm not sure whereabouts this one goes, to be honest, because it's an incomplete story, so I just put it before Tom Baker's last season. Yeah, it's an okay story. Well, no, okay, I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. Not just because of its legacy, I think it is generally a very good story, and Tom Baker does a great job of filling in the gaps. Logopolis, this is a good story, but I really love the regeneration scene. The Keeper of Traken, yeah, a really good Tom Baker story. Now with the 5th Doctor, Peter Davison, we have Castrovalva. Not the best debut, to be honest. It's okay, not a bad story. The Visitation, a very, very good story, I find. Really enjoyable. Earthshock, the Cybermen are great in this. David Banks does a fantastic job as the Cyber leader. And, of course, there's a death of a particular companion, which I won't really reveal, in case for those who haven't watched it. But next up we have Time Flight, which, to be honest, I think is the worst Doctor Who story I've ever watched. Everything about it, I think, is just really, really bad. I didn't really like this one at all. Arc of Infinity, again, not that great, but it's okay. Features the return of Omega, and I wasn't really fussed about his return, to be honest. Next up, we have Mordred Undead. Probably, again, a pretty bad story, to be honest. Terminus, worse than... Actually, Mordred Undead was okay, but Terminus, I think it's worse than Time Flight. Enlightenment, I don't think I've actually watched this one yet. Next up we have Warriors of the Deep. Extremely underrated, I actually quite liked it. The Awakening, again, quite underrated, but I thought it was quite good. Resurrection of the Daleks, a really good story, that one. The Caves of Androzani, an absolute gem. I think this was also meant to be one of the best Doctor Who stories ever. And probably the best regeneration story. Attack of the Cybermen with Colin Baker. It's okay. Not the best Cyberman story. Vengeance of Varus, my favourite Colin Baker story. The Two Doctors. Yeah, it's quite a good story. It features the return of the 2nd Doctor. Next up we have the Trial of a Time Lord season with The Mysterious Planet. A bit of a crap story, really. Mind Warp, my favourite part of the Trial of a Time Lord. Oh wait, got this the wrong way round. Silly me. Terror of the Vervoids, my second favourite. Quite a good story. Nice run-around story. Trial of a Time Lord, The Ultimate Foe. I quite like this one, actually. I know a lot of people don't, but I quite like it. Dragonfire, well, we all know what Dragonfire's like. It's a pretty bad story, and not really one of the best stories of all time, to be honest. Remembrance of the Daleks, one of the best Dalek stories, I think. Probably one of the best Sylvester McCoy stories. The Happiness Patrol, severely underrated, but I personally love it. I think it's, again, another one of my guilty pleasures. Then we have The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, an absolutely fantastic story. One of my favourite stories. The Curse of Fenric, again, one of my favourite stories. Survival, overrated. I think that's mainly due to the fact it's the last classic story, therefore everybody loves it. But I think it's okay, not the best. Next up we have like a 1993 anniversary documentary, More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS, which is quite a dated documentary to be honest, but it was quite fun to watch. The movie, underrated, very underrated, but one of my guilty pleasures again. I really did enjoy this when I first watched it. So I think that pretty much concludes my classic DVD collection. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed me giving my thoughts on each story. And yeah, so I'll probably do my new series DVD collection later on. But yeah, I think this is probably the more interesting part. So yes, thank you for watching, and sorry about the long length. There was a lot to go through. But yes, I've also got the Regeneration Box set as well, and I think there's quite a good bunch of stories on that, like the 10th Planet, which I thought was great, the War Games, brilliant, and Planet of the Spiders, also fantastic. So, thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.